Hello YouTube, welcome back to the second part of the car rendering tutorial. If you watched the first part, you saw a little bit of how we set everything up that you see already, such as glass, the headlights, the wheels, the chrome. But I skipped one important part, and that is the actual car paint itself. And you kind of can't have a good car render without that, so we're going to get started on that now. A good car paint has a couple of properties. One is that you get a good range of values from really bright reflected light, which would show up as pure white, to a kind of absorbed effect, which will show up as much darker than the original paint color. If you ever look at a car, you will actually, regardless of the car's color, often see black reflected in the car paint. And we're going to try and emulate that and see how close we can come to the real thing. Let's get started. So I have my body selected. Now I'm going to add a new material and call it car paint. I don't want a capital A. And we're going to delete the diffuse shader because we don't need that for our car paint. And start by adding a couple basic things. We need our glossy shaders, 4 of them actually. And then we also need our mixed shaders, which we need 3 of them. And to get it all started, we need our input RGB. This color wheel is what will allow you to select any color for your car paint in one click. And for the purpose of this car, since it is called the Mahi, I am going to make it kind of a blue color. I'm going to start by putting this color straight into this glossy shade. And this glossy shader here will determine the overall body paint color of our car. So we are going to set the roughness pretty high to about 0.5 so we can get a nice even base coat of our paint, and we're going to plug this in to the first spot of our mix shader. To get the color for this glossy shader, we need to do a couple things. We want to use this color input, but we don't want to use the same color. We want to alter the color a bit, so that we're going to add, by pressing Shift A color mix node. And we're going to set the first color all the way to straight black. And hook up the remaining color with this RGB input and the output color to this glossy shader and the glossy shader to the mix shader. To see what that looks like, we're going to put this to our material output and kind of see what it came up with. So you can see as it's rendering, it gave us a very nice sort of hue shift where it has a very nice even base coat, which is this shader, but then we have more specular highlights that are given to us by this shader. To make this shader more interesting though, we are going to add a special factor node to this by doing another input, except input Fresnel. And we're going to set the Fresnel value. That shouldn't have happened. We're going to set, excuse me, this is really just messing me up. We're going to set the Fresnel value to 2 and put that factor into that factor, and that'll make it so it's only more specular and brighter when the paint is at an angle to us, which is a trait that you'll see in all materials, which is that when you view it from an angle, is much more reflective than when you view it straight on. And so we need to add something else. We're going to add a special node that will determine this factor value, and that is going to be an input geometry and true normal, and that'll be the factor value. I honestly can't tell you the difference between true normal and normal on the geometry node. All I can say is that the true normal looks better than the normal. I don't know why, but that's what we're using. And to get the color for this glossy shader, again, we want to have it all linked back to this one color wheel, but we want a different color. So we're going to add another mix and plug this RGB and plug this color output into the first color slot and this color slot into the glossy shader right here. Just hook that up a little bit. To get this color though, we're not going to set it to something simple like black. We are going to add a color hue saturation value and plug the color output from the wheel into the color input from the hue saturation value, so you can alter a couple settings here. The hue saturation value node is going to give us a actual hue shift, color shift that you see in a lot of paints, especially metallic paints, where the car paint might be like a green or a black or a blue, but then you see a different color reflected in it, like a green or a blue or a red or something like that. And we're going to try and configure that by changing a couple values here. To get the hue shift, 0.5 keeps the hue at what the input is. 1 brings it to the polar opposite, and 0 also brings it to the polar opposite. So 1 and 0 are about the same. They just go in different directions. The direction that I want to put it in is going towards the right on the color wheel, so I'm going to make it 0.6 for the hue. To make it a bit closer to white, I'm going to make the color 0.9 saturation, and to make it brighter, I'm going to go 1.25 for the value. This gives us a nice color shift that you probably can't see right now, but you'll be able to see it better when it's done. It's there. And I'm going to keep this roughness at 0.2. I just realized I need to bring this roughness down to 0. I should have mentioned that earlier. And now I have this hooked up. I'm going to bring this mix shader into here and plug this mix shader into the material output instead, so we can see what we've done. You can see that the paint is now taking on a much richer tone with a lot of variation in it, much more similar to actual car paint. And even though it looks pretty good now, we're not done. We still have to add our final highlights, which is going to be done with the last glossy shader. This one down here. We're going to bring the roughness down to 0, the color all the way up to white. This glossy shader should always stay with white as its color, because this will give you the crisp reflections and crisp highlights that is prominent on most car paints. The only exception might be if you have a metallic paint. I'm going to plug this into here and bring that up here, and just so we can see what we've added. We've added these white highlights. These make it look shiny. Before it looks kind of dull, but now it looks shiny and almost wet. And we want that. However, it's too solid and too bright for us. We need to kind of tone it down. So what we're going to do is, instead of changing this factor manually, we're going to add a layer weight node. Now a layer weight node is very similar to a Fresnel, node, except it gives us the option to have an output that's facing instead of only on the edges. We're going to make that the factor for this mix shader, and we're going to make it the factor for this mix shader as well. And now you can see that we have very nice gradients on these highlights, where it goes from a solid white and kind of fades out, and we still maintained our deep blacks at the edges of our car paint. And this gives it a very nice tone overall, and really adds a look of professionalism to your render. But so I can change the car paint to any color I want by just moving this one shader wheel. So I changed it from a blue to a green. I can change it from a green to like a gold or an orange. Make it red. Can make it purple. Ugh, I wouldn't want that car. I can make it like cyan. I can make it deep blue. And I can make it any color on that color wheel. And that's one of the best things about using a node material, is that it's very easy to make it reusable and easily configurable to whatever you want. Anyways, have a good time making your own models and your own materials, and thank you for watching. Also, this model is available on BlendSwap. If you want to download it, I will have the one with the materials set up, and I will have one without the materials for you to test your own material setup on. So good luck.